Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Tennis Lycans. How's everybody doing today? Today we are in Empyrean and we are in a creative testing world. So this is a testing world. It doesn't matter if I lose anything. I want to make that perfectly clear because apparently people don't understand that this is not an actual playthrough world. I want to make that clear. This is a testing world. I am testing vehicles to see how viable they are in an actual Let's Play. End of story. So, why are we here? We're going to do some demonstration because I am having an argument with some of the people that are in charge of Reforged Eden 2. They don't seem to understand things, and that also goes with some of the players. They're coming back at me saying things that I'm just like, you're not listening to me on what I'm saying here. So we're going to get into that, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. However, before we start that, there is something that I've noticed a lot of people get confused with as far as Reforged Eden. I wanted to cover that real quick before we get into the meat of this particular episode. So I'm going to turn around here. You're going to see the ships that we're going to play with up there. We are going to talk about the core system real quick. So I'm going to come up here to this and we are going to go to the CPU screen. So this right here, this is the vanilla setup for the CPU. All you need to know about the vanilla setup is all you need is a core, one basic CPU extender, and then two improved extenders, and then four advanced extenders if I've got the order and numbers right. That is your CPU setup for vanilla. That is what you need. You need one, you need both of these for the next tier, and then you need all four of these for the next tier. For Reforged Eden, ignore the tiers. The only thing you're concerned with is this number right here. That is the only number you are concerned with. Well, that and this one right here. So this is the number of how much CPU you've got to play with. This is how much you are currently using. So, with that being said, let's get into what the core system is and what it means by Core 1, Core 5, and Core 9. So, at Core 1, you have just the basic core. This is a core right here. This is what they look like. This is pretty generic because you can color these anything you want, but this is what the core looks like. This is called Core 1. In Reforged Eden, that gives you 200,000 CPU to play with. So that is any of your parts, your thrusters, anything in the ship is going to use up that CPU. So moving on from there, we got Core 2. This is one CPU extended basic, and it increases the CPU to 232,000. So you're gaining 32,000 CPU here. This is Core 2. At Core 3, we have the second CPU extended basic, and our CPU goes up to 264,000. So it went up by another 32, all right? Now, Core 4, this is the first improved extender, and we're up to 328,000. Do you see a trend going here? We're getting 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way down the line until we get to Core 9. And the CPU is going up every time. So that is what we mean by a certain core. That tells you exactly how many of the CPU cores you have in the ship, and it has to be in this specific order. You can't just leapfrog them or it causes problems. So Core 5, this is your second improved. We're at 392,000 CPU. Core 6, we are at the first advanced CPU, and we're at 488,000 CPU. At Core 7, this is the second advanced, we're at 584,000 CPU. At Core 8, we are up to superiors, and it is 712,000 CPU available to the player. Did I say 7? That's 8. So this is Core 9, the final one, superior. This is the second superior one. This is the final layer of the normal CPU, and you are at 840,000 CPU. That is how many points you have to play with. That is everything on the ship, from weapons to thrusters. That is the amount of CPU you have to play with. So now I hope you have a better understanding of how the CPU works. So from here, we are going to move on and talk about these three ships that we are going to be testing real quick. All right, so we are going to talk about these three vessels real quick, they are all capital vessels, only one of which is mine. And what this has to do with is attacking POIs such as this one back here. This is a naval shipyard. And the reason that we are doing this is because I was having an argument about whether or not the resources you get from that is worth it if you are using such a ship. And part of the argument ended up being that my ship, the UNF Phantom, is garbage. Okay, that's basically what the person was telling me. We're going to talk about that in a second, but I want to show you the loot that we actually got from this thing. Okay, so here's the fridge. That's part of the loot. And then I should have had this set up already. So here's the other part of the loot. This is everything that I got from one of those shipyards. Okay, we got 781 copper. That is the biggest amount of anything that we got in there. Now, I do want to point out also that this was not me going through and ripping it apart, taking all the parts out of it, such as the thrusters on the one that I did destroy. It had probably about 20 thrusters in there, so it did have a lot more stuff to get. This is from all of the loot crates, including the alien crates in there, and the alien crates has some rare items in there. I want you to notice first off that we got basically a lot of garbage. There's not anything too exciting in here. Now, one person was saying that this was an absolute exciting thing for them to get, for me to get. I honestly, even looking at it now, and I've seen that it is going to reduce the consumption of energy by 3 kilowatts. I'm still not really that impressed with it. And they were saying that this is the biggest thing that I got here, and that is absolutely worth it. I don't think so. It doesn't seem like that's going to be a huge help. Now, I do see that it also is, you can use 8 of these, but you cannot have it in a blueprint. So the only way you get these is by running POIs. You cannot have it in a blueprint. The most important thing to me here actually is the plasma converters. So in order to go from ion to plasma, you're going to need these. And from what I could tell, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So every one thruster that you're upgrading to a plasma, it is 1-to-1. I don't know the exact number, so don't quote me on that. I'm just saying that's what it looked like to me. So finding 6 of those, that is to me kind of worth it. Sort of. We'll get into that in a second when I go and show like some of these ships and everything. But all in all, the amount of resources that I saw in here and that we got out of there, this food did spoil. I just saw that. That's fine. Don't worry about that. It wasn't that important anyway. I think it was just like a couple sandwiches or something. But the amount of resources we got, this is kind of pathetic from all of the crates that were in there. Again, I did not loot any of the hardware that was in there. I do want to point that out. Apparently people don't understand why I didn't bother doing that, and that is because the hardware is just basic hardware. It's stuff that you can get basically anywhere. There's nothing huge about it. There's no like plasma converters. You can't get plasma thrusters on those things. You cannot find CPUs on there. Usually it is just a core. And on that one there, there's actually 2 core. We're at the wrong angle, but there's a core way in the back, and then the shipyard has a ship on the inside. In the dead center of that ship is a CPU core on it as well. So for whatever reason, that thing has 2 cores on it. I don't know why. That's just how it is. It doesn't have any other CPU parts. So all of that CPU stuff I was talking about, you're not getting any extra out of this thing. You're not. They're not there. So that's the loot that we got out of that on a previous run through, and I just feel like the loot is not worth it. There is no reason to attack one of these. Now then, let's talk a little bit about what has changed in Reforged Eden 2 as far as attack and defense, because this is something that changed drastically from Reforged Eden 1. And that is shield penetration. So shield penetration is a huge deal. We can no longer have ships that are made of carbon, which means that they're very light, in order to give it enough thrust to move it around. Now you absolutely have to have armor. So that begs the question, what is the best weaponry? And we can go and look at all the different weapons here and kind of debate them. I'm just going to skip ahead, save you guys a lot of trouble, go watch somebody else for that stuff. Plasma cannons are the way to go in terms of damage. And here in ReForge Eden 2, we now have a new thing where we have tiers of these things. So this is a plasma cannon light. And then over here, we have the plasma cannon medium. These are the only two we're going to look at because nothing over there to my side has the heavy cannons. This one right here, triple heavy cannons. None of them have that. We're not going to worry about that. That does a lot of damage. They only have plasma cannon lights and dual plasma cannons. That's all they have. So let's talk a little bit about these ships, and we're going to start with mine. First off, this is a ship that I made that is kind of garbage. We're going to use that for a demonstration here in a minute. That is why that one is there. So this is my UNF Phantom, and we are just going to talk about its offense and defensive capabilities. I'm not going to worry too much about its thrust because the thrust is pretty equal to the USON here. Anyway, let's talk about this real quick. So mine is a Core 9 build. That means we are using all 9 of the cores available to us. With the plasma cannons, specifically dual plasma cannons, it is 20,000 damage per shot to shields, okay? Now, that means, just to the shield, that is 20,000 damage. That means over the course of a minute, one of these weapons is actually going to do about 4,000 damage is what it looked like. Let me double check on that because I think my numbers may be off right there. Yeah, it's supposed to be. Oh no, I've got it. I've got it. I've got it. I've got it right. So yeah, I'm saying this all wrong. So we got 10 dual cannons on there, which means per shot we're doing 200,000 damage to shields per shot. That means we're doing about 800,000 damage per minute. Okay, so that's a lot of damage that we're dishing out. A lot of damage. The shield on my ship is only a 73,265. Okay, basically what that means is if my Phantom shot another Phantom, it would instantly pop the shields and start blowing apart blocks. Okay, that's what that means. It would absolutely decimate the shields in a single volley of shots. I want you to remember that because right now you can see that the shield capacity is just below there. If I can keep it on there so that it sees. So over to the right on the bottom, it says 100%. That is the shield. 100%. We're doing 200,000 damage to shields per hit. And that's not even counting any of the other weaponry on there because I don't have damage numbers for those. I'm not going to sit there and calculate all that stuff up. It's not mentioned in the game. Okay, so this is the USON. This is by Spange. It is also... Hold up. Before we go any further, I make a couple of mistakes here, and I want to go ahead and clarify them and fix them. You can see right here on my little board that I have that the USON has 8 dual cannons and the Honey Badger has 18. This is incorrect. I want to catch this right now before people call me out on it. The USON actually has 10 dual cannons, so its damage output is actually the exact same as the Phantom. It is not weaker, it is the exact same. That is a mistake that I didn't catch when I was doing the initial video. I did not realize that there were 10 cannons on it. I realized it much later in the video, though. As for the Honey Badger, same mistake was made. It's actually got 20 cannons on it, and I end up seeing this later. It's coming up very quickly, but I catch it a little bit after I say all this stuff. So yes, I did make mistakes here. I do apologize to both Artemis and Spange for the mistakes. Yeah, that was just in the heat of the moment. And again, I do catch it later on in the video. Let's continue on though. A Core 9 vessel. And it has 8 dual cannons. So per shot, it is doing 160,000 damage. Okay, even with this thing, I should be able to knock out the Phantom's shields in a single shot. Now, that also means that it is doing 640,000 damage per minute. Okay, so it's doing slightly less damage than my Phantom is. Slightly less. Um, yeah, okay. Its shields is 58,000. 58,000. So basically one volley of my ship, and I've done 4 times as much damage to the shields, okay? 4 times the damage almost. It's not exactly right, but you get the point. Now, over here we have the Honey Badger. This is by Artemis Rogue. And the key thing I want to point out here is that the Phantom and the Uson have been proven to be effective against legacy infectors. These are really dangerous ships to go after. They're not the most dangerous ship in the game to go after, but you have to build specifically to defeat them. They are basically the in-game stuff that you want to go out and fight. They are not a joke. The Honey Badger here is a Core 7 build. And Artemis states that this thing is capable of defeating a Tovira, a Xerax Tovira. Okay, what does that mean? Because a lot of this probably doesn't mean anything to you guys or anyone else that doesn't know these ships or anything. The point here is that the Tovira is probably one of the biggest ships in the game. It is the most dangerous thing. You don't want to go after it. Artemis Rogue says that the Honey Badger is 100% capable of taking on a Tovira. Okay, neither one of these are rated for Toviras. Neither one of these. In fact, my ship, I wouldn't even rate it against a Emerat. I was trying to defeat an Emerat the other day. I couldn't even bring down its shields. So that was a lot of fun. Anyway, his Honey Badger is supposed to be able to do that. And I want you to look at these numbers here. So 800,000 damage per minute, 640,000 damage per minute. He has 18 plasma cannons, which is actually weaker. So per shot, one of these is only doing 10,000 damage, opposed to the 20,000 damage of one dual cannon. So he has 18 of those. He's doing 180,000 damage per hit. That's assuming all 18 guns land their hit. That is assuming every single one of those land a hit. He's got it loaded out. There's a lot more turrets on there than anything, but that is still a lot of damage coming out. He could still pop the shields on both of these ships in one volley. Okay. So he's doing 320,000 damage per minute. Okay, that's less than half of the Uson. Now, again, this is not including all of the turrets because in game, here, let me show you real quick. We don't have any numbers for how much damage these things are doing. I can't really tell you. So this is just going off of their primary weapons. Now, the one thing is I will say about his ship is he does have 79,519 shields. So his shield is retarded enormous for whatever reason for that little bitty thing. And this is a Core 7 build. How he got the shield up that high, I don't know. And I know for a fact that this thing is way more maneuverable than either one of these two. So, what we're going to do, and I want to kind of demonstrate this, is we're going to go after that thing. We're going to try and core it with all 3 of these ships. Now, that does mean a lot of in and out, backing up, and letting the shields recharge and everything, and possibly even letting the ammo recharge. I got to find out real quick before I even do this what the best angle is to attack from it, because I would assume it's from the back towards the one core or from the top towards the one core, but that you got to know the actual angles to go at everything. I need to find that real quick and take care of that. But before we get there, there's another important thing that I wanted to mention. So one of the things that they were complaining about and saying that my ship is incompetent, it is not good, is the location of the guns. So we got 4 of these dual cannons in the front. This is a dangerous place. It does mean that there's a chance that they will be taking damage first. I have seen it. They have taken damage. It's fine. I'm not too worried about that. We had to sacrifice a lot of changes for it. It does seem to work. But the thing that they were complaining about is that these back cannons here are so far back that you are not going to be able to shoot at long range. you're not going to be able to shoot at long range. I want those idiots to pay attention to something I'm about to do. So first off, the Uson, notice all the weapons are on the back. You have these two here, but they are not effective at all from what I understand because they are behind a block. That block is blocking them as far as I know. That has not changed. The Honey Badger here, well, they're not as far back as you would think. In fact, this ship is so short and stocky that they are practically in the front. Now, I don't know how many decoys he has in here. It looks like. So he has 4 decoys. He's got this basic generator here, 2 weapon decoys, and a thruster decoy right there. Oh no, those are not decoys. Those are actually capable of firing. So his damage is actually probably a little bit higher. I completely missed those. So we got 2 other guns right here. So you need to add on like another 20,000 to his damage, which is still not that much. He's probably doing 340,000 damage a minute now. Again, though, I wanted to point out that this is still pretty short. Like this, only that section of the ship, like right through here, before you start getting back to the weapons on it. Now, he does have a lot of other things on here, like turrets and everything, mostly for defense as far as I can tell, and I just realized that these are completely exposed even. Those are completely exposed on the side. Yeah, so his weapons aren't even all that protected. He does have a much bigger shield, but again, if you missed it to begin with, shield penetration is a thing here in RE2. So let's move on to what I wanted to show with the range before we move into actually taking on that naval yard. So first and foremost, what I want to point out is that your reticle will change to red when you are in range to actually hit the target. Okay? I can't shoot that thing until my reticle turns red. I want you to watch what happens. And this is another argument I was having with them. Ah, see? So they're already shooting me, and my reticle has not turned red yet. In fact, my shield on the ship is already down, and now I'm in range. But they have already taken out my shield on this ship. Again, this ship is garbage. But the point I wanted to make there is they were shooting me long before I could shoot them. There is a range issue, even with the Zirax, you freaking idiots. I'm calling you out right now because your numbers don't add up to what I'm seeing. This is any of them. This is the creators of Reforged Eden. This is people that make their own ships. What you're saying is a lie. It is a flat out lie. I was still out of range of shooting that before it could shoot me. And this is Zirax. Now, supposedly that is only on Legacy. That is bullshit. You just saw it. I was not able to target them until after they were already shooting me. Now, again, this ship is absolutely garbage. I'm not too worried about that. I just wanted to show that the range is not what everybody is saying. The range, don't listen to any of those people. Their range is incorrect. The enemies in this game have a much longer range than you do. Even if I had turrets on this, they still wouldn't have attacked that before it could attack me. And some of those weapons are way back on that thing. Like, I wish I could get really close real quick and show you, but then we'll have to deal with all the weapons firing at me, which will get really annoying very quick. But I wish I could show you that some of these weapons are really far back on that, and they are still targeting my ships or anybody's ships long before you can get close enough to start shooting at it. All right, with that being said, we are going to go through and we're going to test all 3 of these ships. And the way this is going to work is I am going to go in, I am going to try and take them out. So there is a core on the backside, there is a core inside the ship that is inside the shipyard, and I've got to take out both of those cores. That is the goal. I do need to look up exactly what the angle is I need to attack at, but that's beside the point. And we are going to do this in a particular order, actually. I'm going to save the Honey Badger for last. We're going to start with Spange's ship, the Uson. Then we're going to use my ship, the Phantom, UNF Phantom, and then we'll use the Honey Badger. So that is the order that I'm going to do that in, and I'll put some commentary over the top of that when we do that. For now, give me a few seconds and I will get to it. Okay, so first up, we got the Uson by Spange. It is a Core 9 ship. So the shipyard is going to be, it's not exactly difficult. It's the damage coming in is really the problem, and the damage that we are dealing. So what you're going to see throughout all three of these clips is that I am circling around to the back side of it, or what I am calling the back side of it, considering that I started off on the other side. The reason for this is that one of two cores is on the back side of essentially where NPCs are going to be. So I'm trying to get an angle for that so that I can go in, start shooting at it, bring down the shields, take out some blocks, and hopefully take out the core. You're going to see that here fairly soon. It is going to be a little bit interesting trying to, coordinate this with what I'm actually seeing happening. So we're just trying to line up right now and get in position. I also want you to pay attention to the shielding. This is going to come up later on, and I'm going to mention the shield on just this one POI. So, okay, here we go. We're going in, and right about here, yeah, we can shoot at it, and it can shoot at us. Now, that range thing is not as huge of a deal here because, we got into range long before it actually started shooting. I just wanted to make a point of the fact that any of these POIs can start shooting at you before you can start shooting at it. Notice too that my shields are already down. We took out that core pretty quick. We did take out the shields on it fairly quickly. So in that regard, Artemis, Vermilion is absolutely right. Like, you're doing a lot of damage. So taking out shields on things is not a huge factor. But the problem is it'll come later. I'll say it towards the end of these three clips, but I want you to see that my shield on the Uson is already down to, I can't quite make it out, I think it's like 11%. So we took quite a bit of damage. And remember, there is shield penetration in this. Now, Vermilion was going over the numbers on that a little bit earlier today. This is now day 3 of me trying to get this video made. Technically like 5 or 6. I don't remember when I actually recorded all this, but that's beside the point. So now up above it, so the next core, there's actually a ship that is docked inside of the spaceport. It's not a real ship, like you couldn't take it and then take it out there and fly it. It's actually part of the structure itself. So there's effectively 2 cores in here. I don't know why they did it that way, but that's how it works. There's 2 base level cores. Now, there is some more information. I think I shared it earlier or later that is also incorrect. There actually is another CPU part in there. I didn't find that out until I'm making a whole other video currently, and it's showing the actual loot that I got from this thing, which is the real problem here. And I found another core or another CPU block in there, which makes no sense because it's an improved CPU block. So I don't know why there's no basics in there. There's 2 cores, no basics, and 1 improved. That doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what they did. So yeah, now you can see that we're fully charged. We're going to go in, and that second core is in the middle of the front section of it. It's kind of hard to make out the ship shape, so you can see it there. So it's right there in the middle of it. So you got to get the shield back down and then blow through those blocks there. Meanwhile, I'm getting shot from all sorts of angles here. And Yeah, there it goes. You just saw it explode. So yeah, the Uson pulled through fairly well. I mean, we're at 26%. Again, I'm looking at a really small version of what you're seeing, so it's kind of hard to read the numbers on everything. But yeah, so the Uson really surprised me. Like it did very well. Okay, so now we got my UNF Phantom. It is a Core 9. It's got pretty much a similar loadout. It's not the exact same. Like Spanger's got a lot of weapons on his that I'm not even sure what types they are, and I'm talking about the turrets. Again, because of the way Vermilion has done things, I don't know what the actual damage numbers are on anything as far as turrets, so it's very hard to say exactly how much damage you are doing. One thing I want to point out between the two ships before we even really get in there is the Uson was apparently doing more damage, even though its stationary weapons, its cannons, are exactly the same as what's on here. Uh, that's kind of an interesting thing that I've realized too afterwards. Like when I'm putting all these clips together and everything, I noticed that hey, the Uson actually took down the shields faster and had more shields left over, even though it has the weakest shields of all three of them. So here we go. We're going in again. Same spot. We're aiming for little corridor there. The left side of the corridor is where that first core is. So we are trying to take that out real quick here. Again, I do want you to kind of pay attention to the shield numbers and then pay attention to my shield numbers if you can look at the same. There we go. We popped the first core. I did notice, I think it's this one or maybe it's a previous sequence where it looks like I'm getting shot from below. I couldn't find anything that was actually shooting at me, but it definitely felt like something was shooting. It must be in a different clip later on, but there's definitely a section where I'm like looking, trying to figure out what the heck is going on because there's shots coming in from below, but there's nothing below me, so I can't quite figure out what's going on there. Anyway, we're getting in position again. We're going to come down at it and try to shoot out the secondary core. Again, that secondary core is located in what is effectively a ship there. Uh, Now, I will say that the Phantom's spread as far as its recharge versus how much shielding it has is kind of the opposite. We have more shield than we do recharge rate on this versus Spange's Uson. So that is kind of like a different problem there. However, again, that is something that was suggested to me because this thing was built to hunt legacy ships. Uh, I've only tested it on a legacy infector, but it is effective against a legacy infector. So that is kind of one of those things that I want everybody to be aware of, that this was built to take on legacy, and we weren't really struggling against these Zrax POIs. That's something that people on the Discord were not understanding. They were thinking I was struggling against the POIs with this ship. That is not the case. The ship that got destroyed, which was a Phantom, was actually against a Zrax Immerat. The Immerat, I just simply could not take it out. I just wasn't dealing enough damage to take out its shields and then take out blocks to get at the core. My shields were getting knocked out long before the Immerat shields were. That was the problem there. The problem here that I was trying to make a point of is that you need at minimum a core 9 or possibly a core 7. The core 7 ship, the Honey Badger, that is by Artemis Rogue, it does do the job. You're going to see in a little bit. I can't really say that it's a fault with the Honey Badger or if it's a fault with my piloting skill, but you're going to see that in a minute. Anyway, here we go. We're going back in. Shield is up. Now we just got to bring down their shield. And again, I want you to pay attention to how much shield is going down per shot. Later on, there's a sequence where I go in and I specifically just have the cannons active, so that's the only thing. And notice too that I'm having to reload here. So while I'm reloading, I'm getting shot by all of this stuff. So I can't quite make it out. Maybe the shield is zeroed out there. You guys will know better than I can because it looks like a 2 to me, but that might be a 0. Anyway, so it knocked out the shield. There's some damage that's going to be on the nose of the Phantom, but it did do the job. That was the point I was trying to make, is that these vessels do the job. Okay, so here we go with the honey badger. Same exact deal. We're gonna go over. We're gonna get in position. We're gonna go start shooting at it. I wish I had skipped ahead a little bit, but I didn't. So you're just gonna have to put up with that for a second. Uh, anyway, back to the issue at hand. So the honey badger is a core 7 ship. Both the Uson and my Phantom are core 9 ships. The problem is that if that's what it takes to take out one of these POIs, then I would assume that the reward for doing so would outweigh the risk. And that's something I don't think uh, Vermilion or Revan understood about my complaint, is that if the what it takes to take these out versus what you're getting out of it, it just doesn't match up. It doesn't make any sense. You're effectively, it's like one of those old thief movies where they're spending like thousands, they're spending like millions of dollars to go rob $20,000. So you're spending a million to get 20,000. Why? Anyway, so here we go. We're going in with the honey badger, and you may not have noticed it yet, but I've gotten a little bit disoriented, and I'm trying to aim. So we're having a little bit of an issue there, and also notice that its shield is not down yet. I think its shield is down now, and we are starting to deal damage to the blocks, but we still haven't broken through the blocks. Okay, maybe we did. I didn't see the explosion, but I do know that when we go and get the other core block, the all the sentry guns are done. So it does work. It didn't feel that good to me. And this ship is supposedly capable of taking on a Tovera. There's no supposedly. Artemis Rogue has his own channel. He has videos of him flying his own ships. He does do exactly that. So, in my case, it's probably just a case of lack of skill. That's probably really the only problem there. It does do the job, and it does worry me a little bit because still, that even taking some damage is not a huge deal. Like, it's not a big deal in the long scheme. However, considering that these are basically small fry in the grand scheme of things, like it's taking way too much to take these things out. And if you don't know what I mean by that, like much later on in the game, going against POIs and other ships gets very, very ridiculous. I've seen a few clips of everything. I haven't actually faced any of that stuff yet myself, but what little bit I saw just taking on a couple of legacy ships, I can't even imagine what some of the other things. Like I haven't even seen a swarm yet, and a swarm, from what I saw recently of somebody's screenshot, is just ridiculous. There's a lot coming at you, and the limits that are in place just, it doesn't, to me it doesn't match up. Like Vermilion can state the numbers all day long, hit till he's blue in the face. I will grant him this: we are taking down the shields fairly quickly here. My issue is the we have 2 Core 9 ships and a heavily modified, a heavily armored ship that is specifically meant to take on, is meant to do nothing but combat, and it's a Core 7, and that's what it takes to get these POIs down. I would expect to get out of these things either a few good items, like 5 or 6 good items, or maybe a third to half of the resources necessary to build these ships. And that's not what you get. You get like maybe a tenth of what you need. So why would I bring in something that is 10 times expensive as what I'm getting out? again, it's like you're robbing a place of $20,000 when you spent 1 million to rob it. It doesn't add up to me. I do think that he needs to like take a better look at the balancing, because the balancing to me just seems out of whack. I could see why he thinks it is good. However, it just doesn't feel right. Like, it feels like the balancing is in favor of underpowering the player. Anyway, that kind of wraps that up. I hope that all makes sense. We're going to continue on with the video, and I will see you guys in the video. Past me will take over. Alright, so that's all three ships, and it figures the game decided to make me a liar, and it was pretty easy on all three ships. Now, I do want to talk about the actual damage that was done to the ships themselves. So Spange's ship, the Uson, did suffer damage. However, when I went to go inspect it to see how much it needed to repair, I forgot that I left that repair station on automatic. So it went through and it repaired everything. And I was like, ooh, ouch. So I don't know how much was actually damaged on that ship. I imagine there was a little bit of damage, but I don't know what. My ship did sustain, if we can see this here, it did sustain some damage here in the front. So the Uson absolutely must have as well. I don't know how much it did. I don't know what all this was cost, but this is fairly simple to repair. Mine is a much bigger, much heavier ship, so I'm not really surprised because I don't have as much armor. Literally, it's only like the first 2, 3 layers that is actually armor on the front section here. So up to about here, all of that is just armor. However, it's not all of it is not combat still. It goes back to uh, heavy steel. Yeah, we're just going to say heavy steel. So I imagine the Uson did take some damage up here in the front. I don't know how much because, again, I accidentally repaired it. Now, as you saw there at the end, we did lose a few blocks on Artemis's ship, and it has sustained some damages there. I didn't take a good look to see where any damage was at on this, but it did take some massive hits. So we're seeing damage all the way back to about, what is that? About 5 or 6 blocks, depending on how you look at it, because 6 would be like right there, and then that's about 5 back there. But I'm not seeing anything in the center here. It's only on the sides, and on the bottom, it's kind of hard to tell because of the material that he used here. But it does look like we've lost some things, and apparently we did lose a piece over there. Yeah, we lost an antenna right there. So yeah, his did do the job, and it took some damage. Again, that's like a Core 7 build. But even at that, the whole purpose of this was that the amount of loot that you're getting. I just realized that he's got more. I didn't even see those before. So his damage output's probably a lot higher than what I calculated. All right, yeah. So there's that too. Apparently, I made a mistake there. Didn't realize it. I'm just now seeing that those are there. So he's got just as many weapons as I do, as far as like your manual fire weapons. So that is kind of interesting that his ship clearly was the fastest at doing it. Artemis's, I don't see how that's going to take on Tovera. We did we did manage to do that at the end there. You saw that I had a little bit of trouble aiming. That's because I got disoriented a little bit. I was like, no, wait a minute, where exactly am I aiming at on this? Because I can't actually see it. With his ship, I literally could not see what I was aiming at. The others, for whatever reason, I have much clearer idea of where I was aiming, but for his, I couldn't really tell. So there is that little interesting detail. We are going to move on from that because, again, as I stated, that demonstration just basically made me a liar as far as how much damage these ships were going to take. That is completely and utterly the opposite of what was happening to me yesterday when I was doing the same thing with this ship and this ship. I've already learned that this thing is absolutely horrible. It's not capable. It doesn't have enough blocks. Uh, its shield is not big enough. This only has like a 15,000 shield. So, of course, the shield got knocked out really quick when attacking that. But that does beg the question if my Viper is capable, considering that I now know the exact orientation to attack this thing at. So, this thing, I retrofitted it for Reforged Eden 2, but it was originally built for Reforged Eden, and it was capable of taking on Sunnets and coring those. So I don't see why this wouldn't be able to do the same to that, although we're probably not going to have the damage output, and the shield is a little bit lower on this thing. So we're just going to go one more time. We're going to have a little bit of fun and see if we can do that. I don't really know what to say because that whole demonstration just made me a liar out of all this. I still stand by the idea that the loot is not worth it because I've got to bring in one of these ships that is uber powerful and requires a lot of resources for basically nothing in terms of resources. And I would have to do that several times, like attack several of them before I even got enough loot to recoup what it took to bring those in. So we're going to do this one more time with the UNF Viper and see how this handles. So let's see. Okay, so this ship is the UNF Viper. Originally, it was a Reforged Eden 1 build, and it was effective up against a Summit at the very least. Here in Reforged Eden 2, I had to do a lot of changes to it, and from what I can tell, I did upload this, but I didn't test it beforehand. But from what I can tell here in Reforged Eden 2, it is absolutely worthless. It is not got the damage output that it needs for Reforged Eden 2. So I still need to go through and do some configuring, though I am debating like making a whole new attack vessel. This is part of my modular set, so this it was released simply because it was part of the modular set, and I just wanted to get something out there because I really needed a carrier type vessel, and I figured, well, I guess if I really need a carrier, I might as well go ahead and make a carrier for the modular set. And basically what you're going to watch here is that I cannot bring the shield down past 50%. I'm just not doing enough damage. See, my shields are already gone. So that's not a good sign. That's a huge problem. And again, this is currently a Core 5 build. Now, that is a huge, huge problem. If it's taking more than a Core 5 build to take on this POI, then I would expect that I'm getting a lot of material out of it towards something higher than a Core 9, which is the exact opposite of what you end up getting. That is kind of the point that I'm trying to make across in this entire video. I know that throughout the all of it, as I'm doing this like extra recording after the fact, I have not mentioned that throughout any of it. I have not said why I'm going about this, why I'm showing this. It is taking way too much to attack and defeat these POIs for what little you're getting out of it. I did make the point of saying that we're effectively spending $1 million in order to rob 20,000. If you don't get what I'm saying there, the amount of resources that you have to dump in to bring in a ship or even making a ship that is capable of bringing down these POIs isn't worth the amount of resources you get out of the POI. There's a huge, huge imbalance there. I do have some ideas on how Raven and Vermilion can fix that if they are watching this in case. You're going to have to wait for part 2. I am working on a part 2 that goes into more detail on the resources and everything, but here again you can see that the shield is already gone and I still haven't brought down the shield. Bear in mind that this thing has 6 light plasma cannons on it, so at 6 we're doing about 60,000 damage a shot. still not enough. And this thing also has 6 laser turrets on it. So you would think that we are bringing down the shields fairly quickly. We're not even bringing them down. We just aren't. As far as the shield on this, it only has about a 25,000 shield. And that's with 4 of the possible 8 small shield parts installed. I think in the next section where I try this again, I think I installed 2 more. We did 2 of each, so grand total there will be 3 capacitors and 3. There's 3 3 shield capacitors and 3 recharge. I can't think of the names of those off the top of my head, but anyway, I think, yeah, we're getting close to the end here. I can actually see where my vocals start back up, but it seems like I'd probably go back in for another round of firing just to see if I can in fact do this, or maybe I'm flying on back. I can't really tell at the moment. No, I'm still in front of it. So yeah, we're going in for a third try here. See if we can bring down the shield. Obviously we can't. I mean, in this particular case, third time is not the charm. And I do imagine that we have taken quite a bit of damage to the front section there. So yeah, going in again, and you can kind of see the shield numbers. You guys are be able to see that more than I can. I'm looking at a little bitty box. Yeah, it looks like we got the shield down to about 40, 42 there. I can't quite make it out. But yeah, still can't even bring it down. And it's taking way too much. Like this, again, is a Core 5 build currently in this configuration. The fact that we cannot bring the shield down with a Core 5 is a bit ridiculous. This same ship in ReForge Eden 1, I do believe, was able to accomplish that, though the loadout for weaponry was completely different. So that may also play a role. However, as I stated earlier on in the video, it doesn't really matter. The best configuration of weapons in the game currently is simply to use plasma cannons. I know a lot of other things use different weapons, but even with Artemis's ships, you can tell that everybody's using plasma cannons because they do a decent amount of damage to shield. So they're doing 10,000 damage. The light ones are doing 10,000 damage to shields. The mediums are doing 20,000 damage to shields. So that is the mid range of damage. Either you're doing like 5,000, which is barely nothing, or you're doing like 20,000, which is the straight up lasers. But then the problem becomes you're not dealing any damage to the blocks. So, and a lot of people complain about that. Like if you're not firing all the weapons, we don't have a fire everything button. Um, you've got weapons that are sitting there being useless. They're just taking up CPU for no flipping reason. So just know that using plasmas is pretty much the general consensus of what you should have on your ships. Okay, so that actually put the point across that I was trying to make as far as damage that we're taking versus damage we can deal out, and whether or not some POIs are worth looting. Because clearly there we weren't even able to take the shields out. Now, as a reminder, the light plasma cannons are doing 10,000 damage per shot to shields. Okay? So, with 6 of those on there, that it was 60,000 damage per shot that we were doing to that shield, and we didn't even drop it down below 50%. So that's 60,000 damage that we were doing per hit, and we didn't even bring that shield down uh, down below 50%. Now, in comparison, I want to remind you that all 3 of these ships don't even get over 80,000 shields. So the amount of damage that they're taking in to pop the shields off of these versus how much we can actually do. I mean, again, 60,000 damage to that, and we didn't even pop the shields off of it. So though there is a lot of weapons on those, they are dishing out a lot of damage. However, I still think that this thing would be capable. So what I have done, we still had some CPU left over to play, is I've removed the antennas that were right here along the sides. So now we have a total of 8 plasma cannons on this. Now, that's going to mean a total of 80,000 damage. Again, I am not counting the turrets because I don't have specific numbers on those. I have no idea how much damage those are actually doing. But I also found out here in Reforged Eden 2 that the amount of these small shield parts has changed. We can have 8 of these total now. Before it was just, I think it was like 4 total, but now you can have 8. I don't exactly have a lot of space in here, so I just went ahead and I added one more of each of them. So we got 3 chargers and 3 capacitors. So that means that our shield has gone up by about 12,000, and our recharge rate has gone up by about 450%, or 450 seconds, or however that works. Basically, short story is our shield recharge rate should be faster and we should have more shields. In fact, if I go here, you can see that we now have 24,000 shields. So it should take a little bit longer for the POI to actually take out the shields on this thing. And that means that we can stay engaged with it a little bit longer and hopefully bring down its shields. I don't think there's going to be a huge difference, but it should make some difference. I have not reset the shipyard this time. So any damage that I did previously is still going to be there. I don't think I did very much anyway. So we're going to try this again and see if I can get this Core 5 ship to actually take on a shipyard. Alright, here we go for round 2 with UNF Viper. So the changes that I made between clips, we added 2 small shield parts. So if you recall in the first clip I said that there are 4 of them in there, and then later I add 2 in. So now I've added 2 in. There are now 3 and 3. We have 3 capacitors and 3 shield rechargers. I forget the names of the 2, but one of them adds shields, one of them adds recharge and takes away shield. So our shields are still, they're still not that high, but they're better than what it was. As far as weaponry, we added 2 more plasma cannons to it. So instead of doing 60,000 damage a shot, we're now doing 80,000 damage a shot. So the point again is that the amount of resources that you're having to put into bringing in a ship that is capable of taking on these completely outweighs what you're getting out of the POI. That is something that I want to reiterate. That is my problem with the POIs, is that what you're getting out of them versus what you put in to attack them doesn't make any sense. It is not worth it. And you can see right there, my shields are already down, so now we are taking block damage. And the thing about the Viper is the front section of it, the very front section of it, is combat steel. Then behind that we have a little bit of heavy armor, and then behind that, like the cockpit and everything in the back, is just plain steel. Now the bottom of it, I don't remember the configuration for it. I'm pretty sure that the bottom of it, the belly of it, is all like carbon on it, so you don't want to take any hits on the bottom of it if your shields are down. But then again, that I don't remember if that's something I changed between Reforged Eden 1 and Reforged Eden 2. I do know in Reforged Eden 1 for sure the bottom of it was nothing but carbon, and that was to reduce weight for your thrust. That is a very important thing. So here you can see that I'm looking around. We did lose a couple of guns. That's not good. That means that our damage is down, and we still weren't able to take down the shield and then take out blocks in order to destroy the first core. Remember, there are 2 cores on this. We need to take out both of them. But the main point I've been trying to get across throughout this entire video is what you're putting in to getting a ship that is capable of defeating one of these is way more than what you're getting out of them. And I'm making a part 2 video where I go into more detail on this. I don't know if I mentioned that in the previous clip, even though I just recorded it. The thing is that what I got out of it, I didn't even get any large optronic bridges or matrices. I got a few smalls, and that's about it. We did get some plasma converters, which the UNF Viper here and rEwArD Eden 2 has pretty much got every single one of its thrusters as plasma. That's the only way I could get the thrust to be where it should be here in rEwArD Eden 2. I don't know why that change was made. You would think that this ship would be exactly the same in rEwArD Eden 2 as it was in rEwArD Eden 1, but it's not. The thrust is just, it was so wacky. I had to change everything to plasmas. So see here that we get in there, and at some point we are going to take some massive damage. Now, I did try to record this earlier and realized I ran out of room as I was talking about, but yeah, there you go. So there's the damage. I can see that the voice is coming up. We took some big hits there. I'm going to let Passantanis take over, and he's going to talk to you a little bit more about what happened there. Okay, so obviously that did not go so well. We took a lot of damage to this Core 5 build, and you can see that we've lost 2 cannons on it, so our damage is down a little bit. I don't think we lost any of the turrets. No, the turrets are all still fine. We did lose quite a few blocks. We lost right those 2 blocks right in there. We lost an entire section here. Uh, I'm not entirely sure what happened here, but the oxygen tanks did blow up, so that may have been what caused a small explosion. What's interesting is that it took out the entire core section. So we lost core 5, 4, and 3. We're down to cores 2 and 1, which means that the CPU is like way over. Just to get this thing to move, I actually had to turn off pretty much everything except for the thrust in order to bring it back so I could get it to repair. And it, again, it did do a significant amount of damage to the structure as a whole. But again, this is a Core 5 build. It's meant to be really compact and everything and as small as possible in order to get the weaponry that you would think would be necessary. Clearly, it wasn't necessary. So we did knock out the shields the first attempt to go at it, but we didn't break through the wall. We just simply weren't doing enough damage. By the time that we did get their shields down, our shields were already down and we were already losing blocks. I was aware that we lost at least 1 plasma cannon during the first exchange, and I figured we still have enough damage to try again, so I went in after I got the shield recharged, which unfortunately meant that its shield was recharged. I was hoping that our shields would recharge a little bit faster. It did not, and even with the increase of the shield, it still wasn't enough to take on the POI over there. So that leaves me questioning how much is the repair going to be for this? It's not capable of dealing with that, so how much is the repair going to be? And if we can fly on down here, I did turn this off so we can see the repair cost for it. So we are going to need 983 iron, 1,554 carbon. That's because the interior of it is carbon. Only the outer shell is iron and combat steel and hardened steel. We're going to need 1,535 copper ingots, 614 cobalt ingots, 450 titanium ingots, 498 aluminum powder, 952 neodymium. That's a big one because you don't find that too often. It's not as rare as some of the others, but it is getting up there in rarity. We're going to need 20 large optronic bridges. That is a lot of bridges that we lost there. 30 Sathium, that's not too bad. 260 Erestrium ingots and Zirconium ingots. That is some of the most expensive stuff in the game to get it. It is also the hardest. Apparently, we lost at least 1 thruster, so we're going to need 2 plasma converters. 12 graphite, not a huge deal. Elementium pentaxid, we're going to need 24 in order to repair this completely. And then as far as our repair blocks, we're going to need 2,696 repair charges. These things are actually really cheap. I didn't realize how cheap they are to make. So that is not in a huge amount. This is only for repairing blocks. This is not for replacing blocks. All of this is for replacing blocks. Now, as a reminder, this is a Core 5 build that couldn't take that on. So you're going to need something bigger to take it on. And the smallest thing that I have that we were able to do it was RMS Rogue's Honey Badger at a Core 7. That is still an expensive ship to go up against that when oh no, it's a fridge. As I was saying, when this is all the loot that you get from it. Now, I do want to point out again that I did not take any of the hardware from there, but that would require you taking the hardware from it and either throwing it into the factory to get all the resources out, or taking it back somewhere in order to throw it into a deconstructor. My problem with that is, and the whole reason I didn't bother doing it, is that is going to cause you problems as far as weight if you're playing with the weights on. You can see right here, I've only got these separated out, and this is a fridge, so the fridge's capacity is very small, but you can see that the weight here is already pretty high, and that's without even taking parts out. And then you would have to transfer these to something that has a deconstructor in it. And that is one of the things that, we don't have in these ships. In fact, I don't even know how much storage they have in theirs. I at least have some storage in my ship. I have a lot of storage in my ship. I have at least two storage containers on it. I have one harvest container on it, and then I have two ammo containers on it. And all of that is all for like gathering anything that you would get from like a POI such as this. And the reason we have the harvester is I do have a tool turret on here. This is something I had to point out for somebody because they were questioning why the hell I'd put a tool turret on this. If you're attacking a POI like that or a ship and you want to start tearing it apart, using the multi-tool is great, but you're going to go through charges very quick. It is far quicker to just use a tool turret on a ship. That is why this is here, and it would go immediately into the harvest controller. So you're harvesting a lot of stuff that you're going to take off of it anyway, and that is also including blocks for the sheer amount of iron and sathium you're probably going to get from it in order to repair things like this. So again, that's way too costly of a ship to take on that. And this, I would say, is probably cheap enough to bring in to take on uh, POIs, but it's ineffective. It's not strong enough to attack some of those. We were doing 80,000 damage a hit. Okay. We did bring the shields down. I think it took about 4 or 5 hits. So that POI probably has close to 120,000 shields, I would imagine. Well, actually, probably much higher because even with the Phantom, we're dealing like 200,000 damage a hit. So, and we're not taking out the shields in one volley. It is taking a few volleys to take down the shields. I can actually demonstrate this again. This is trying to get the point across that the damage values are not as good as what they're claiming. Now, we were able to do this already, but I just want to show you taking down the shields. Remember, we're doing 200,000 damage a hit. So, if the shields don't come down in one shot, how much shield does it have? So, we probably did about 10% damage there. So, 200,000 damage, it's probably got about 2 million. Yeah, probably, and that's rough numbers. Somebody else do the math for me. But that's probably about 2 million shield capacity on that thing. Hey, it's Editor Natanis here. So I actually did the numbers on that. We did about 6% damage to the shields of the Shipyard, which means after the calculation that it has about 3,333,333.3333333. It's got a large shield on it. It's got a very large shield on it. So that's why it's taking not really a long time, but it is taking quite a few hits. And I just want to point out again that we're doing 20,000 damage per hit. That thing's got a 3 million shield. So, yep, there we go. There's your numbers. So it is going to take a much bigger ship to take it on, and then your resources that you're getting out of it don't even compare to what you need to get such a ship in the game. So once you have something like this, in order to take on something like that, why would you even bother? It's not a good investment. It is not going to be cost effective. It is not going to be time effective. I actually needed that, but oh well. So the point stands that the loot that you're getting out of these POIs for what it takes to destroy them is unbalanced. Like it's heavily uh de I can't even think of the right proper word here. It is not cost effective to bring in one of these ships to take on such a POI when you're getting basically garbage from the POI. You're better off just going around and scavenging all of the wreckages in order to get something like this in order to do other things with them. So taking on the POIs again, just it's not worth it. It is not cost effective. I mean, again, we got two core 9s and a core 7 that were able to defeat that thing. This core 5 here doesn't have the firepower to take it on. And I don't think I could even like make it to where it could, because we had already used up a good chunk of the CPU in order to just get its shields up high enough to where I think I could have brought down these shields, which again, we did manage to do, but once. We only managed to bring down the shields once, and it wasn't enough to core it. So, again, I ask them to prove it to me, make it seem like this is actually cost effective and capable. Your damage numbers do not make any sense to me. If I was firing 20,000, 200,000 damage, and we only brought that down 2%, so my guess is 2%, 20%. My guess is that it probably has about 1 million shield capacity on that thing. It's going to take a lot of firepower to bring that down. It is possible, don't get me wrong on that, but the amount of what it takes to bring down that shield compared to what you're getting out of it is not equal. It's way out of balance. You're giving us garbage for bringing in a trophy, basically. You're asking me to bring in a trophy to give me garbage. That's the best way I can put it. I'm at a loss for words because this is so unbalanced. It's ridiculous, and they think it's balanced. It's not. I don't know what else I could do to prove to you that this is not balanced at all for what you're getting out of it. It just isn't. I mean, what do you want me to say? Anyway, that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoyed my little rant here. And if you think it is worth it, prove it. Show me that it is worth it. I want to see you do it. I really want to see you claim that it is worth it. Even that special rare item that somebody was saying that was worth it right there and there. I was looking at the stats on it and looking at what it can do, and I'm like, that's kind of pathetic. And one of the examples that I used for why I thought it was pathetic. Let's go over here to this ship. So this is just a carrier. They were saying they would use that thing on a carrier. And if we go in here, you can see that we have turbines here. These are the medium-sized turbines. And then we also have the small turbines here, and the large turbines are back here. So we have all of the turbines in this. And when it's running, it is still using 274 watts of power. It is still using power. So we are still burning fuel even with all of those on there. Now, I do think, well, I don't really know how these numbers work, to be perfectly honest. I'm not that knowledgeable about it. I do think that one of those things, let's just go ahead and grab it and quickly see. Wrong thing. This is the thing that they were telling me is amazing. I don't see it as worth it. I don't have a place to put it, so we're just gonna like slap it on here somewhere. So this is supposed to eliminate 3 kilowatts of power. If I've got the numbers right, this should reduce me down to negative. Yeah, it does do. It does reduce me down to negative. Okay, so essentially what I said to this person was a lie because I thought this was using a lot more power. Apparently it's not. So one of these is making this where I could just leave it running completely and it would just work. So yeah, it does seem worth it. As far as anything else, it probably isn't worth it. Let's take this. Okay. I don't even know where you would get that from. So it does say that it is permanent. Like once you put it down, it's stuck there forever. So that's kind of my mistake right there. There's still some things here that I do need to learn. I will admit that that I just learned something, and I don't know if I can get another one. Okay. Anyway, so for that thing, it would work on that. Let's go over here to the Phantom. Yeah, here we go. So on the Phantom, we're running at 12 kilowatts of power still. So if I put one of those on there, it's going to take 4 of those to reduce me down to 0 on the power here. Now, the thing about that is if I go here and I turn off the thrusters and we go back to statistics, it's still consuming power. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So apparently something changed there. If I turn off the thrusters and turned off the weaponry, this is now not using power and it can just run. However, if I'm actually running this thing, I'm actually using it. We are going to be using fuel anyway. Granted, for those things, and it should reduce the power usage while I'm actually running the battle cruiser to 0, and we're not using fuel. I don't know how much CPU that thing takes because I didn't pay attention to that. I just was not impressed with it. It did not seem like it was worth it at all. 3 kilowatts of power is not a whole lot. Now, I did see, I think you could use, I think it said 8 of those, or maybe 6. No, 8, because I was thinking you would need 7 of those to reduce the power down to 0 on that, but the power that's putting out is not what I originally thought. I wasn't sure about that when I made that comment. Apparently it was the Phantom that I was thinking of when I said that, but seeing that it takes out 3 kilowatts of power, it still doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal for it because that's a rare item, and you would need 4 of those to take this one ship down to 0. Now, it is potentially possible to go ahead and bring this down to 0. I will admit, because we have the advanced turbines here. We do have pretty much all of the turbines, only the advanced turbines we only have 2 of. I couldn't find a spot where I could fit in 2 advanced turbines. So we got the standard turbines here and the small turbines here. So we did reduce the power this thing's consuming by a lot. But at the same time, we ate up a ton of CPU to do that. And I don't think Spange's ship does that. Yeah, I don't even see any turbines in his. I'm willing to bet he doesn't even have them in here. You know, come to think of it, I don't actually know where those get listed under. So let's come here. Let's point right at that. So let's get it. It lists them under generators. Okay. So generators. He's got a fusion generator and a large generator. So this large generator is probably a decoy up in the front, and the fusion is what actually powers the ship. Yeah, here it is right here. So that's a decoy, which is something I was told not to do because it eats up CPU. Originally, I did have some up here. They were like, there was two of them like approximately here. Yeah, approximately, well, not up here, but down here. They were approximately like right there. There was two of them, one on each side. And then over here in this little corner, because there's nothing here. There's absolutely nothing here except for a sentry gun there. So there was another two like right in here that served as decoys. And the thing about that is they are still considered in front of the turrets because of the way they were lined up. Though looking at it now, so they must have been like right about here. Yeah, they must have been like right about here where the where that spot is. So we did have decoys there. The reason I'm bringing up the decoys is because they were complaining that I didn't have enough decoys in here. I was like, yeah, well, I got told to remove them, and this one is the only decoy, but I've got an entire front edge here that is nothing but combat steel. This whole thing is combat steel. So I should be able to take a hit from the front at all times. And the way weapons work is it only gets damaged if it gets hit in the pivot point. So if we go back here, you can see that this is 3 wide. If we get back here, only right here is where it will take damage. If it does not hit right here, it will not take damage. So even if they are shooting everything at it, they're going to be destroying the blocks around this before they destroy these front guns. Uh, so far in my testing on my ship, I have only lost one gun in the front. And that's because I stayed engaged in combat for far too long. And it ultimately ended up causing me the ship afterwards because I only lost one. It was this one right here that I lost. But the ship ultimately exploded. I don't know exactly why. So the core, this is not the core, but the fusion reactor is what blew up. This thing blew up. I don't know what it chain reacted off of because this thing blew up. These oxygen tanks were gone. This this turbine was gone. The shield capacitor was gone. So everything through from here all the way back to here was just gone. This entire section was gone. Well, if we look, this ship's not aimed correctly, but we are inside blocks right here. Now, the outer blocks are steel. I do believe I put hardened steel on the inside around that chamber. And around here we have Xeno. So these parts are definitely protected a lot more than it seems. So even at that, these parts are like down here. So unless they shoot through that, and then this entire thing, look, this is hardened steel. This is all hardened steel. This thing is well protected from all sides. So how they blew up that generator, I don't know. How they blew up the reactor core, I have no idea. Because we are fairly protected all the way back. Now, I do know that a lot of that is steel. If you go back and you watch, you'll see that a lot of that is steel. That shouldn't be. That should be steel. Or combat steel. I don't know why it's doing that. This shouldn't be there. Anyway, my point again is that this thing is far more capable than people think that it is, and it's actually just as capable as Spange is Ushane. The only thing is the size difference. So his is a lot smaller, mine is a lot bigger, and because of the bigger size, I do need a lot more thrusters on it. His, not so much. He doesn't even have drive thrusters on here. All he's got is advanced. But you will notice that these are plasma. Plasma. So they're all plasma. And again, if we go back over here and look, well, it's over here. We only got 6 plasma cores from the one that I looted earlier. Only 6. That's not a lot. If we go and we look at the cost of building some of these, again, all of this is me trying to make a point. The cost outweighs the benefit. There is no benefit to taking on those POIs because the cost of these ships is way more than you're going to get out of those POIs. So let's go here to statistics. Look at the Xeno still. 7,200. Did you see any Xeno still I got from the POI? I don't think there is any Xeno still in it. I haven't checked, but I don't think there is. So 5,000 Zirconium, 5,000 Terrestrium. We didn't even get 1,000 out of it. I don't think we even got 500 out of it. But the things I want to look at the most, look, he's got quantum processors in his. So in order to even bring this thing in, you need loot that comes from a much bigger POI. Or you need to get lucky in getting those from like vendors and loot containers from other types of POIs, POIs that are far easier to get at. That's not the only thing that I wanted to look at. Look, antimatter converters, 32. Where's his plasma? Because clearly he needs plasma too. Platinum, plasma converters, 24. We got 6. So I couldn't even get this ship in from the loot that I got from that. It would probably take another 3 or 4 to get that ship after defeating 3 or 4 of those. So let's come over here to the Honey Badger. I mean, Artemis is pretty good about his ships. So Zirconium 4,000, again, not enough coming from the POI to get these filled. I just simply didn't get enough from that. And even if I grabbed all the parts are going to have that anyway. They aren't. Large electronic bridges. Well, we got 4 small bridges. 40 of them. You need 40 larges for his ship. I think mine's somewhere in the same neighborhood. If you got the same kind of parts, you're going to need that many. Regardless, you need 40 of them for this ship. Large optronic matrices. He needs 8 for them. Gold, he somehow squeaks by with only 4 gold needed. That doesn't make any sense to me because these things require gold. And actually, these require 50 gold ingots per. So for 40 of them, that's good grief. He needs over 2,000 gold ingots just for this, I believe. If I've got my math right there. He needs over 2,000 just for that one. He needs another 160? No, way more. He needs another 400 ingots for these. Had to try and do math in my head. That still may not be right. But my point again is that the loot that you're getting out of those just isn't enough to even think about bringing one of these ships in. And if you've got something like this, which is a lower level, it's still not even capable of taking on this POI. Now, I could probably go and grab a few other people's ships, and unless they've got a lot more weapons than this does, it's going to have the same result. We just don't have the damage output to take on that unless we've got one of these, which is overkill for that. It's just, it flat out was overkill. I was actually very surprised how quickly I cored both of the cores on that thing with these 3 ships. Even with the Honey Badger, which again is very costly, I was able to do it. The Honey Badger is the only one that I'm a little bit worried because it did sustain damage. And again, how many of these types of POIs you're going to have to go after? Now, I don't think you need to go after like 2 or 3 of them and be like, oh, I'm done. Uh, but considering that would take probably 5 or 6 of them just to get the resources you would need to bring in one of these ships, and the only way to take that thing on is to bring in one of these ships, like something's wrong with the math there. It's not adding up. It's not making any sense at all. So, yeah, that is my rant on that. I do think that they need to revamp the loot tables on these. They need to make the loot tables a little bit bigger. Again, we did not loot the parts, but the parts are not going to get us anything that isn't like basic items. We're not going to get anything more. We're not going to get anything more than what is right here on this page. And in fact, a good chunk of this stuff isn't even going to be what we get from it. Like we have ores in here. We're not going to get ores. We're probably most likely going to get plates, ingots, and some of these parts here, like the flux cables, advanced electronics, and things like that. I realize that that is ammo. So again, I cannot reiterate enough that this loot table is bad. And the comment that I left on that particular message between me and this person was that the actual loot of this is so horrible that I think Minecraft's loot tables are good. And I hate Minecraft's loot tables. Their loot tables are just atrocious. And this is worse, in my opinion. This is far worse. So anyway, again, down in the comment section, leave me your thoughts. Tell me what you think and give me some statistics on that. Like, give me some information because I guarantee you, you're wrong. It's like I've been saying with Vermilion, one of the co-authors of Reforged Eden, that the damages that we are doing compared to what's coming in at us and what it's taking to take these things down is not comparable. His numbers are way off. Again, I could take any one of these 3 ships here and shoot the other ones once and I knock their shields out. We were firing volley after volley and it would it would take a minute to take the shields down. And you're watching that they're dealing enough damage to us that they're taking our shields down about the same rate. So they've got way too much coming off of that thing. In fact, the only way I could think of that you could take that on without losing your shields or taking any kind of risk, which the whole purpose of taking these on is risk anyway. Don't get me started on that. That's a whole nother thing. I get it, risk reward thing. The problem is that the risk for taking this on outweighs the reward. The reward sucks. End of story. So leave me a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Give me some input on that. Tell me what you found in one of these, what you've taken it on. Tell me what you took it on with. What kind of vessel did you use to take out these shields on this thing? Now, obviously, the tactics I was using there were very, very basic, and I was going straight in, taking unnecessary damage. However, part of the problem with this game is the jankiness of targeting. And what I mean by that is the AI has a 100% accuracy rate. It does not miss. If it's shooting at you, it is going to hit you. And that's part of the reason why I can't stand the ground combat in this. And why I call hacks on anytime I see somebody walk by something and not instantly die. Because that's all I ever see in ground combat is if I walk by something, I'm instantly dead. If I cannot figure out a way to get around it without it seeing me, I am instantly dead. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you later, and whenever I manage to actually put this video together and upload it. I've had a rough day trying to get things done, and very aggravating too. So I will see you guys then, and until then, take care.